goes on and multiple people can come in.
Great. Okay, we'll start by taking the call to order. I'll start Peter Ethel, Budget Advisory Committee.
Deputy City Manager.
Tyson Thornburg,
Kevin Eagles, Finance Director.
James Horan, Budget Advisory Committee.
Brad Anderson, Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation.
Christina Underhill, Director of Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf.
Stephanie Carlile, City Clerk.
Steve Ward, Council Liaison.
Rita Russell, Council Liaison.
Laura Schultz Cooper, Budget Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Online too.
Jay Knight,
Yes, who do we have
CAC.
online? Sorry.
He said J9.
Jay, oh, hey Jay, how are you?
I'm doing all right, a little under the weather, but I am back in Colorado.
Good, well, we're glad to hear that. I'll start before we approve last month's minutes, but Bill let us know yesterday that he's resigning from the committee, and the city knows, I think, at this point. So we're really gonna miss him. And I know he's been an integral part of this committee for, I think, at least maybe 4 years. Maybe longer than that. So we're sorry to hear that. And he just kind of said that he just needs some time. So, and he said that he'll look forward to seeing us around town. So we'll see when that is next. So I think with that, we will be moving Laura, I believe, into a full voting member. And then I think we'll have to wait on just knowing when we can bring in a new alternate member. So.
Do we need a formal motion on that, Peter?
Yes, and we'll do that after we approve the minutes, or do you want to do it now?
It's up to you.
Well, let's do it now.
Okay, I'm happy to submit a motion for Laura to move to a full voting member to the committee.
Thank you. Any seconds? Oh, Nevin's not here. Jay, can you second that?
I second it.
Thank you. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Laura?
You're a voting member. We're glad you are, so thanks for doing it. Approval of last month's minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, we'll get into the city department, department presentations. It looks like, I think, City Clerk Carlile, I think you're first.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, good evening. I'm excited to meet with you all again. I enjoyed our visit last year. We'll just give you a quick snapshot for the sake of time of our department overview. So some of our primary duties in the City Clerk's department is we serve as the clerk to council, administer all the municipal elections. We do the liquor and marijuana licensing. We do open records requests. We also keep boards and commissions and council meetings in compliance with open meeting law. We also run the hub here, the front desk in the Civic Center here on the 3rd floor. We are a passport acceptance facility. We do the full agenda management for our city council, records management. We are technically the custodian of all records of the city. However, we are decentralized, so every department kind of heads that up, but we have a full records management division. We do all the board and commission coordination and mail services for the city, just to name a few. We are a small but mighty team of 8 people. So this is our organizational structure. We currently have 1 vacancy that we have posted for our deputy city clerk, but we have 3 part-time customer experience representatives. Those they are the team that run the hub here at Civic Center. They also do passport services for us. Andrina Prado is one of our deputy city clerks. She will be moving into agenda management, and she also supervises all of the part-time staff. Jackie McKinnon is our senior deputy city clerk. She oversees all of the operations of the city clerk's department, in addition to liquor licensing, special projects, just the operations of every day, and staffing. And then Casey Rogers is our record system and program manager. So department metrics, we don't have a ton tied to the strategic plan specifically, but we do have the metrics of, the percentage of city records that have been digitized. We've been running a big citywide project to get records digitized. And then our next, not metric, but it's in our governance under policies and procedures is to implement our digital record system. And that's going to be the implementation of Laserfiche and then a communication and testing plan to update all of our records and information management policies. So always following best practices, new legislation that comes out with records management, and then implementing a digital voting system for council meetings. That is something in collaboration with the IT department, and that is something that we're currently working on and hoping to roll out to council as soon as we work out a few software tweaks with that. So for our funds return to the fund balance, I'm very pleased to say that we got really, really close, probably the closest we've ever been. Our biggest variable is elections. We don't know if it's going to be 150,000 for a special election or this year, because the ballot was so large with federal ballot measures, state measures, county measures, and then ours, and then several jurisdictions did participate in this year's off-year election. And we got the bill and it was $15,000. So we always budget 40 just to be safe because it's a variable we just don't really know about. But that was probably the biggest thing under contractual services is that we didn't really fully spend that, but did quite well this year as far as how we budgeted and how it played out and where we landed.
Good question on the election costs. Obviously, we're tied in with Arapahoe County,
Yes.
I guess the state, right? So how does, just for the group, how does that sort of waterfall or
Yeah.
process work?
Yeah, so how they base what an election costs is it's weighted by population, and it's based on how many jurisdictions participate. And so during our municipal year elections, several municipalities in Arapahoe County participate, but that's in odd years. Even years are considered off-year elections, and not as many people participate because it's an off year. I can just tell you the city of Englewood hasn't had an off year in quite some time. I think 2020 was our last off year. So they basically weight it on population, how many people are participating in that election, and then they kind of split the costs out from that.
And that comes down from Arapahoe County?
Arapahoe County, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And a lot of times they try to give us a cost estimate on the front end when we let them know that we are going to be participating. But again, until it all shakes out of how many people some people pull out because, their ballot measure doesn't go forward, or more people jump in, you just don't really know until you get your invoice, which tends to be around December 20th, right at the end.
Right in time.
We did, for our capital, we have a very small budget, but we did spend that towards updating our passport room and getting that furnished properly, and that was we got really close on utilizing those funds. So.
Could I ask on the passports, I feel like last year you reported that was a fairly new service.
Yes.
How is that going in terms of usage or revenue that it's generating?
Yeah, fantastic. So we exceeded our projected revenue for the city for the passport services. We brought in $108,000. We serviced, gosh, I have to look back at how many people we were serviced, but it has been a huge success. And we get a lot of feedback from members of the community. And really, we service anybody who can go online and find an appointment with us. There's not many facilities out there doing it right now, and it's been hard for people to find a place. And when they come and they're met with just top-notch customer service, our team is really fantastic. We've just had great feedback from people So I'd say it's wildly successful. So very proud of our team and, really making it, a win for the city of Englewood for sure.
Great.
Yep. So some of our major accomplishments, this was our first year of being last year was our first year of being our own department with 3 divisions. So that would be kind of the hub and passport, records, and then the clerk duties. We did our passport room updates and it generated over $108,000 in revenue off your election, which included our GO bond measure, and then 2 citizen-initiated charter amendments, which the initiative process, we verified over 3,000 signatures for those 2 charter amendments that did go on the ballot and did ultimately pass in the November election, as well as our GO bond. We hosted, so in off years, we host a voter service and polling center for Arapahoe County. And because it was a presidential election, got a lot of traffic. It's a great service we can offer to the community. It's very convenient for people in the community or really any Arapahoe County resident. Our Laserfiche implementation, we had a huge year on that, our implementation. We also had our scanning and digitizing project. So over 57,000 documents were uploaded into Laserfiche, and that was across 10 city departments, and we were able to have our public link to records go live. So that was primarily like city council records, which would be legislative records, board and commission records. But it was just a great thing that now people can kind of click on the link and go look for ordinances themselves. If they're doing a research project, sometimes it's fun to just look back at some of those kind of archival, old historic ordinances, some handwritten ordinances in there, which is super cool. So we really like being able to share that with the community. But yes, over 15,000 documents were digitized. We implemented a new open records request software in conjunction with the police department, and that has gone splendidly well. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to file those records requests. But what we know with open records requests, it's really important to track every single one that comes in, make sure that we're hitting our mark with getting those responses out within the 3-day required period. So having a software system that tracks it, provides autoresponder responses to the people who file records. It also makes it easy to search for prior record requests. So that was a big win for the city as well. And then we hosted our first intern this last year, and that was good. So the big year for the city clerk's department. I think I expressed with you last year, really the only challenges we face is that our hub and passport team are all part-time, and they're all really wonderful, but part-time positions just don't hold kind of like full-time positions do. So we just tend to get a lot of turnover, which sets us back on how many passport applications and appointments we can handle. So sometimes when we have a vacancy, just because part-time, say, somebody finds a full-time position, or, we've had stay-at-home moms who just decide they'd rather just go ahead and stay home, whatever the case may be. We've had students and their schedule just didn't allow. So that's usually our biggest challenge, is just part-time staff. It's just the nature of the beast. It's just keeping people in there. And also, now that we have passport services, they have to go through pretty extensive training, and they have to get certified through the U.S. Passport Agency. So it takes a while. Even when we get them rehired, then it takes a long while to get them trained and then certified. They have to do a certification through the federal government for that.
Real quick. So that 108K was a gross or a net number for the passport services?
Gross.
That was before or
Yeah,
after
gross.
cost? It was gross?
Yeah, it was gross. Yeah. Okay.
So, is there a way that we would viably see expanding this, or is the city's position that this isn't really our business beyond.
Yeah, so
Providing
last,
a
we did
service.
ask for additional hours. We did have a part-timer who was very interested in working more hours. And so we did, that is something that we can recoup. We can more than pay for those additional hours. That is something that council did approve for us this last year. And then we lost the staff member. We are still committing to those additional 10 hours. But the number one thing is, more hours means more opportunity and availability to generate the revenue through passport services. We've got our staffing for the hub pretty down pat. So the only thing would be is if we want to do more passport services, we would just need more hours for that. But I feel like it's gone pretty well.
Sounds like.
And then the only other challenge I could come up with is just that what we talked about, it's just hard to predict election activity for the year. And that's just what we do. We run elections and we run initiatives and we run, charter amendments, and that's just something it's hard to plan for. So sometimes that can just derail half a year and then it kind of delays some of our other major projects, but that's not really a challenge. It's just maybe something that just changes our priorities throughout the year. That's it. Pretty straightforward, yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a quick answer, but how does sort of the digitization of our files and filing, how does that interface with sort of the web updates and some of the other tech things that I've been hearing around town? Or is it sort of ancillary and on its own, given that records management stands by itself, probably regardless of what the website operates as?
Yeah, they don't interface with each other, but we're trying to link our repository for records throughout the website. So anything that can be external as far as a record, which in municipalities about 95% of the records can be outward facing, and so we're linking that through the website because that's where somebody's going to go look for it, and then it kind of links to our Laserfiche program. I don't know if that answered your question.
I think it's sort of ancillary, right? I mean, you have a link on the website and that goes into your own records.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Portal.
But it's a document management system throughout the whole city, and it's, you can set retention records so that we're in compliance. We can destroy records properly when it's time, and really just making sure that records are accessible and they're accounted for, and that we can make sure we have what we need.
How far back were your handwritten examples?
I mean, all the way back, yeah. That's pretty, and that one, you have to just be so delicate. We have things on permanent paper as well. So we have these really big old books. I'd love to do a little field trip if there were time. So I'd love to show you our passport room and our records room. But yeah, so there's some really cool archived old, for all of our old ordinances and legislation, so.
What's the timeline for the whole project and what % complete are you?
So for Laserfiche, I'd say we're probably maybe 30 to 40%. It's definitely a multi-year. We did get some funds available for scanning and digitizing, which we have been sending those out and working with every department that's ready to have their records sent out. So that was a great, we had $40,000 in 2024 and we used every penny of that, just orchestrating getting records that were ready to get digitized, sent out, and then put into the repository. So it's multi-year. I hope in the next couple of years it's just going to be fully done, and then we'll have, that safeguard.
So do you go back by chronological year?
Mm-hmm.
So how far back are you?
For legislative records, we've got them all. Okay. So every ordinance and resolution, so that our city clerk department records, which are city council records essentially, are all digitized and in the system. So yeah, we thought that would be a really good place to start.
That's great.
Those are permanent, and they're the ones that people typically want to see.
And measurable outcomes.
Yep.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, well, thank you. We
No,
appreciate
thank you
it.
guys.
All right, again, I'm Christina, and this is Brad, and we're from the Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf Departments. Next slide. Try to show us off through pictures. We do a lot throughout the city with multiple facilities and parks, but our mission is bringing people together to play, learn, and live well. We're actually in a process of potentially renaming our department, so it possibly only has one name versus 4. It's a lot to say. And we also do events too, which we don't capture in the title. So we oversee all of our parks, trails, the golf course, special events, recreation programs, our aquatics. Both Pirates Cove and the Recreation Center have pools. We are also adding a splash pad into Miller Field when that comes online through the bonds, which is also an aquatics facility that will be overseen by aquatic staff and maintained, as well as our golf course, Pirates Cove Water Park, our farm and train, which was extremely popular this last summer. We'll talk about that in a bit. But we have a large department. We expand to over 200 additional staff in the summer with seasonal staff in both our parks and in our recreation center with our summer camps and different programs we run there. And then Pirates Cove takes the bulk of our staff too, with lifeguards and concessions and maintenance and all that good stuff. Next slide. So this is organizational chart for the department. As you can see, we've got all the divisions up there with aquatics. Senior services is not new, but we've broken it out from the recreation center. It used to be part of recreation. It's still recreation, but it's highlighting senior services, our recreation services, parks and open space, the golf course, which is an enterprise fund. It's not in the general funds, and then our library services. So we do have a lot of department metrics. We do track our key performance indicators, KPIs, throughout the year and have been doing that for many years. We've actually expanded that. We do national reporting to the National Parks and Recreation Association, as well as our local association, the Colorado Parks and Recreation Association. And then our library does a lot of stats with the state library as well. But these are some of the metrics: the number of outreach events conducted by library and recreation staff. I believe we had over 49 total events, including like neighborhood nights, the block party, you name it. We had staff there, either part of the logistics piece of setup breakdown or part having a tent at the event talking about what the department does. We also are looking at monthly and annual registration numbers for both the Recreation Center and Malley. And this is really important. We do analyze all the classes and programs we offer. And if we don't have success in a division of classes or programs, we redirect and try something different that our patrons would be interested in. Also, permits and programming of open space. So we do permits for field use as well as picnic shelters. Those are very popular. Those open up the 1st of January. And we do sell out many shelters throughout the season, especially around the graduation time frame. It's hard to get one during then. And then also Pirates Cove is a little bit separate, but they do a lot of rentals too after hours and stuff that brings in additional revenue. The number of junior passes, this is what we're looking at for Broken Tee. We know it's a family-friendly facility, and we really wanted to get the youth involved at Broken Tee Golf Course because we know if that's their home course at age 5, they may continue to return year after year and bring their kids someday. And so it's one of those things you want to lock them in and have them love it so they'll continue to come back year after year. Number of teens and tweens participating in programs. Our library does this very well. Teens and tweens are the hardest to program for because they have their own ideas of what they want to see and do and how they want to recreate with their friends. And so we're annually looking at that. What can we add in? We look at our special events. How do we add different elements into our special events to get those kids out there? This last year, and it's been happening for a couple of years, but we did the silent disco out here in the amphitheater. And it was extremely popular. While we had all ages, there was a good contingent of teens and tweens participating in that event as well. At the library, we look at the number of items from circulation and the collection that rotate on a monthly basis. This is really important because we want to invest the dollars into books and resources that our community really wants. We are this year implementing a new program. It's called Library HQ, and it is looking into all of the books that we have, and it's AI more or less, and it predicts what our patrons will read next. And so it helps our team select the proper books and resources for the patrons. So we will see them circulate, not just sit on a shelf. And that's been really successful. And that program actually has been in place in other library systems, like Denver has had it for many years, and they've had great success with it. So we want to be sure we're investing in the right resources for our patrons. And then tea time utilization, the rounds played versus the rounds available. We had over 78 rounds of golf played, and that's pretty close to the max utilization. I think we can get up to like 85,000. But we had a great season this last year. The weather held out and we lasted well into the fall. They broke revenue numbers this last year, which is great for an enterprise. They have a lot of capital projects that they need to address over at Broken Tea, and that's going to help them address those needs quickly.
Christina, where will we see those? Will those be part of the capital planning that we're going to be doing here in the spring, or will those?
For the Broken Tea?
Yes.
So Broken Tea being an enterprise fund, we don't use general capital dollars for that. They use their revenue as capital. And so after they pay off debt services, whatever's left. A good example is we invested $1.9 million into the back 9 irrigation system, and that took 10 years building capital to be able to perform that project. So
is it done that way because Broken Tea sits as a separate entity?
yes.
Or are there other reasons that?
That's the way that works, is it's an enterprise fund, and so they do fund themselves. One thing we're looking at potentially this year is taking a loan from the city. I don't know when that's going to happen yet because we're still doing an analysis of some of the projects that have come up over the last 3 months that need to be addressed. And so it may be something we'll be asking the city for a loan that we'll pay back over time to be able to address some of the immediate capital needs that are kind of health and safety related.
Is there some breakover percentage? I mean, what's the allocation of available capital that goes to capital projects, and then what amount of capital that goes to capital projects is actually fulfilling the total need dollar-wise?
That's a really good question. That's part of the analysis we're going through right now. One project that's happening currently is an audit of the attics and all the buildings at Broken Tea. It was discovered that we had wires hanging out, and some of the trusses and the roof were cut. We don't know when that happened. You know, there's a built-in with the 80s. So we need to address those. And so once we have that figured out, we'll be able to add all that together. That was new. We need new roof, new siding, new windows. If the building, just collapsed tomorrow, we'd build it all new. But we're getting close to that happening.
Understand. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I don't know, has it ever been fully redone?
No, it hasn't. Not since
Definitely
it's been
past
built.
its useful life.
It is, and other things that are happening on the course. We did do a action plan for Broken Tea that addressed all the needs. So whether it be on the course, redesigning the course slightly to make it more playable, or making golfers have a better playing experience. The front 9 pump station is going down, and that's about $500,000. It's all said and done for that, and we need water on the course. So there's things that we're looking at and trying to prioritize of, okay, if that pump goes down, our grass goes brown. Means your golfers don't come out. They don't want to pay for brown grass to play on. So we want to make sure we're staying on top of things as items are aging out of the system. And part of that too is an asset management system the city's implementing and our department's implementing to be able to track this much better as we move into the future. So we know, hey, that pump is now 20 years old and that's life expectancy. And we've been saving money at this point to be able to replace that. So it's trying to react in a smarter way to the needs, not just wait till it fails and then we're fixing it.
Sure.
Yeah. And then, a number of unique visits to Pirates Cove during the season. That's another number we're tracking. So we want to know people that come once, or the people that come 10 times who have an annual pass, and we're tracking that so we can see what our target market might be and how we advertise and use our advertising dollars wisely to attract new people to the park. And then overall participation in citywide events. Our team puts a lot of time and effort into planning these events, and we hope thousands of people show up, and typically we do get a great turnout. But, if only 10 people show up to a Saturday market, which was happening over the last couple of years, we're now redirecting those to First Fridays, where we're combining the market with some other activities to bring more people in and see if we can attract more people so they can be part of our city, part of the community, and connect with neighbors and friends at our events.
And I'll take it from here as far as the expenses and stuff. So this right here is a general fund balance that we came back with what has been put back into the fund. So personnel and salary, you can see that just under $7.6 million is what was there. Estimated 7.8 is what was expended with that one, which is a negative 222,000. The majority of that definitely is coming from the library over that because of staffing levels. So that's why we were over in that area. Commodities made the big target items that we have in commodities are pool chemicals for both Pirates Cove and for the recreation center, repair and maintenance, operating supplies, and then also Pirates Cove food was a big targeted item too. So we had an amended budget, just over $1 million, and an estimated amount utilized just over $900,000. So we put back in $131,000 with that one. Contractual professional services, Excel Energy, of course, that's all those bills that come into there, also water, those things are there. Just over $2 million with that one. The amount utilized was $1.7 million, a little more than that one, so $336,000 went back into the general fund there. Capital, our surf vehicles that we have in the department, both used at Malley Center and also at the Recreation Center, $188,000. We utilized just over $135,000, so put back $53,000 into the budget with that one. Debt services, no debt services in recreation, so bottom line comes back to that we put back $298,000, just under $299,000. So we had a pretty good year in the recreation of parks, library, those things. So that was good. Next one is the golf course fund. So with this one, personnel and salary, when we go down this one, wages and compensation. So the amended budget was $1.2 million. The estimated amount of expenditures for salaries is $1.4 million. So that's a negative $160,000. The whole reason for that one is such a successful year that, Christina just alluded to that one, to where record-breaking revenue and stuff coming in. When you have that, there's always staffing stuff that's going to cost a little bit more to operate. Under commodities, repair and maintenance, irrigation, fertilizer, $360,000. We're under a little bit over about $73,000 with that one. Where most of that came from was irrigation. Had some irrigation issues that we had to fix there. And then also
front nine, not the back nine.
Because the back nine was just done. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Fertilizer and sand. So those things caused to have a little bit of an overage with that one. Cost of goods. So every couple of years, what happens is all the pro shop items that are on sale in the pro shop, they have a closeout sale. And so we purchase more items with that one to have a closeout sale. That went over about $60,000 there. Contractual and professional services. That was a little bit higher as far as what was spent. And that's because it is an enterprise fund, the IT services for the city are utilized at the golf course, but since it's an enterprise fund, they do charge for that one. That didn't make it into the budget, so that's why that one's a little bit over too with that one. Or it's not really over, but it's a little bit higher from what was amended. Capital, equipment and machinery with that one too, it actually came in to be putting back into the fund $65,000. And then we also have the debt services with that one. The bond payment of it the amended budget was $218,000. As of the printing of this was $68,000, so it's back $149,000.
The golf course had a really good year with revenue. They brought in $3.7 million in revenue, which was their top year to date, which is great. So,
and you mentioned, I think 85,000 rounds. What was the full? What would be every round was filled? What would that be?
It'd probably be closer to 4.5 million, and we were at 3.7.
Yeah, so it's 90 something thousand.
Yeah. The pro shop is top $300,000 in sales, which is kind of a lot for a golf course. Pro shop, they have wonderful merchandise in there. Good place to do shopping if you're looking for new stuff, so, yeah.
Okay, and then also Brad, on the debt service, specifically what debt was serviced in these numbers?
That's for the bond that is out there for the golf course, to
Okay,
pay off the bond is what that's for.
and do we know what the remaining balance is on that bond?
Talk amongst
No
yourselves.
rush, no rush. You take your time. Can you go golfing right now?
No,
Shop's
it's a
closed.
little
Maybe
too much,
Saturday.
too much snow on the ground.
Okay.
You'll lose your ball and never find it.
But I
even
mean,
if
how
it's
do
in
you all determine when to?
So in the wintertime, you want to protect the grass as much as possible. And so actually this is nice to have it closed during this time. And it's expected, and that's something that's budgeted, is to have a late start on the season due to weather. And the more moisture we get during the off season, the better the course will become the spring. So we're not losing any sleep over what's happening at the course. In fact, 2 years ago, we were covered in snow where it iced and then snowed and then iced again and snowed for about 3 months where we couldn't have anybody out there. So it's actually doing us a favor by having snow on the course right now. Golfers don't like it, but we do the driving range is open. And so you can at least go swing a club if you're
I
looking.
probably should do that. I played golf there last year once, and we enjoyed it.
Good.
The bonds, there's still 1.4 million outstanding. Those get paid off in 2033.
Okay.
Did you say 2033?
So the amended budget was 218 grand. When was that amended, or was that actually the original budget? And why did we, I mean, I guess it must be some floating rate, or what would lead to an underutilization?
That would have been the original budget, because we know what our debt service is at the beginning of the year.
I would think.
That estimated amount does not include the December payment that we just made, which is the principal portion, about $125,000.
Okay.
So
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
For the open space fund, personnel and salary with the Parks Department, we're able to, with the Arapahoe County Open Space Fund, with that one, we're able to take out and pay for 2 of their salaries for Parks Department, which helps us out greatly. On the general fund side of that one too, the amended budget was $161,000. As of the printing of this one, it was $21,612. So estimated return to the fund balance is going to be 0. Talked to finance today, and that one has just been transferred over, so it's right at the $161,870. So that one's just about equaled out, so that worked out good.
So that gets transferred at the end of each year based off of the utilization from the staff. So whatever their salary is or hourly rate is going to be, and then they do the transfer at the end of the year for that. So that happened at the end of December, and so that full amount was moved to the general fund.
830,
I'm sorry.
which not, 831. 831,000.
No, 100, the top one, the park staff one, the 161.
Mhm.
So that's a budget transfer from open space to the general
The general
fund to
fund,
pay
okay.
for the 2.5 employees.
Thanks to the Arapahoe grant.
Yes.
How long does that grant continue? I don't recall. We
It's
wrote about it last year.
indefinite sales tax. It's a quarter
Yeah,
cent
it's not a
sales
grant,
tax
so-
indefinitely. So that really helps the cities out in Arapahoe County do a little
Great.
bit more than what the general fund can provide.
Great. So what is our compliance to keep that?
Well, I mean, we do annual reporting with our finance team to Arapahoe County showing how the monies were utilized.
Great. And there's been, I guess, great feedback or no feedback?
We
No
have a
feedback's
great
probably good.
relationship with the Arapahoe County Open
Yes.
Space and meet with them regularly. And we're about getting ready to apply for a grant this year to address Centennial Park. So we'll keep it going. We've been very successful with the grants, which I think shows how our relationship has been great with them over the years.
yeah, we get the tax collection, but we also issue grants that we've been very successful at. So
It's great.
I think we're getting more than our share.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a nice asset to have.
It's wonderful.
For commodities, irrigation supplies was the biggest one that came out of that one. There was nothing amended in the amended budget for that one. Expenditures were just over $43,000. If you drove by Cushing Park this summer, you would have noticed that it was brown. We talked about you don't want golf courses brown, you don't want parks either, but we had a pump go down, the whole system went down, so we had to put that into repair. The other things, we had a pump that was pretty expensive too that went down at Bellevue Park that we had to replace. So those are some of the issues that came into that over expenditure in that line item. For contractual, basically just repair maintenance items is there. We had a number of things that came in with that one, so that one was just over $1 million. Some of that stuff also came into play with Bates Logan, phase 1 and phase 2 with that one, so there was money taken from there. And then for the capital stuff, landscaping and construction too, amended budget was $1.9 million. Estimated amount used was $9,000, so there's $1.9 million was put back into that fund. Debt services, no debt services for that one. And if you look at the bottom line with it from the totals is $831,000 went back into that fund to be used later date.
So, which is really, as I'm seeing it, primarily driven by the capital line item. Does that 1.9 million call it, is that a delayed expense, or what was the reason that we didn't spend the money this year?
It wasn't the timing with everything coming up for the Bates Logan project is where that came into play. So
Yeah, it's part of, so it's 3 phases for the renovation at Bates Logan that's coming out of capital. And so we've only done the first phase completely. We're in phase 2. So the amount charged for that project hasn't been realized as of yet, but all 3 phases will be complete by beginning of summer. So the monies that we have there will be paid out to complete that project. And it's nice because this rolls year after year. So if we don't spend it all, we add it to the next year's projects.
And the open space fund has its own set of books.
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Dedicated funding.
The next one is the Conservation Trust Fund. Conservation Trust Fund is where the lottery funds we get from the state come back into play. So personnel and salary, we don't use anything with that one. A lot of restrictions that are out there as far as the UCTF funds. For personnel, there is some things for maintenance and stuff, but we don't utilize it for that one. For commodities, the money that was put into play with that one, as you see there, was ERC and Pirates Cove maintenance items. $4,200 is what budgeted for it, and we expended just over $44,000 for that one. So the way this plays out, a lot of that $44,000 came in from Pirates Cove maintenance items, especially for repair and replacement of furniture. So we're on a cycle to where every so often, every year, we replace so many of the lounge chairs and stuff because of wear and tear with that one. When you get into the contractual and professional services with that one, we purchased new cardio equipment at the recreation center. Some weight equipment went into that one too. We budgeted $88,700, but the total expenditures came into play with $342,000. Also included in that was expenditures for the renovation at the Englewood Recreation Center. One of the things as far as with cardio equipment, with that on that line item too, is no equipment had been placed, and so what happened was that fund kept building up and building up. So it was time to spend that out. What we want to do is get into a habit of every couple of years replacing the cardio equipment and the weight equipment so that it stays fresh. The other nice thing about that, when we turn that back into a company, there's a trade-in value with that one. When we traded in the equipment at this time, there was no trade-in value because it was so old. In fact, some of that equipment had been older than 20 years old. So that's why we're going to be in that cycle at both Malley Center and also at the Rec Center on turning that equipment over. Then also contractual was some of the Pirates Cove maintenance items. So as far as maintenance items going on, the facilities from Public Works, most of that money is not used for repair and stuff at Pirates Cove, to where we are relying on the Conservation Trust Fund money to do periodic maintenance at the facility. So that's replacement of pumps, that's replacement of circulation equipment, that's replacement of chemical introduction equipment as well too.
And Brad, real quick, in addition to what you just mentioned, what other, just so I understand, what else is the Conservation Trust Fund responsible for? What can be allocated to that budget?
Okay, it's all for recreation and there is 4 parks. So it was earmarked once that did pass by the voters in the state of Colorado that the money would go back to recreation and parks is what that's there for.
Okay, thank you.
We generate, I think each year just over $400,000 is what's generated into that fund, so.
Thank you.
For capital, admitted budget was $510,000. None of that was used this year, so that went back in or stayed into that fund. And then for the total, what was returned back into that fund was $136,000 as it was there for CTF funds.
And I'm just going to ask, since I've been asking, the capital of $500,000 will be delayed and that will be spent on the same project, which was what?
It's on different projects.
Okay.
May not be earmarked yet. You know, there's some things that we have in the 5-year capital plan for Conservation Trust Fund. What we're going to do, like I mentioned, is that number 1 is replacing cardio and weight equipment. We're going right now into designing a new weight room for the Malley Center to where some of those funds will be used for that one. And then also we're looking for at the pump room at the rec center for the pool equipment is replacing the high rate sand filters and the pump and stuff in there. So right now, the life expectancy for most pool equipment is 12 to 15 years. The filters there right now are over 20 years old. So what we want to do is stay on top of it and be replacing those things before it fails and it becomes an emergency purchase, because most equipment is not available on the shelf. It's a month or greater out, so that's where we're trying to keep everything fresh.
Yeah, and then a pool that big, probably some very custom installation.
Yes, yes. And those are those numbers.
Thank you.
All right, so some of the big accomplishments from last year, the train at Bellevue Park was replaced, and ADA accessible train. It was fun to see kids in wheelchairs and adults in wheelchairs ride the train for the first time in the history of Bellevue Park. So we were excited for that. You can see we had 93,000 visitors to the Farm and Train. Opening day was insane. We had a line almost in the parking lot of people that were super excited to ride the brand new train. And we almost made $300,000 in revenue from Farm and Train. And when you think it's like $3 a person.
And about what did we do last year?
Oh, good question.
Okay.
It was like 100 and
Yeah, it was just under 200,000 is what it was last year.
Okay, so dramatic uptick,
Yes.
to say slightly.
yeah, and it was cool too because we used Placer AI to track people through cell phone data. We had visitors from all over the place, from out of state, out of country. They came through Farm and Train and Pirates Cove too, but it was just cool to see that got out. That was so advertised this year, but just by individuals that have their own blogs, Mom and Me groups. It was crazy to see how cool that was. It was exciting to be out there. We had 2 baby goats born also at the farm, which helped us with people continuing to show up. Also, I mentioned Bates Logan Park, completed phase 1. We're in phase 2 and rolling into phase 3 right now as the weather permits. We're working on that park. Again, hope to have it open late spring, early summer. Renovations for the aquatics offices, front lobby restrooms at the rec center were all renovated last year. That was a project that was had been worked on since I think 2018, and finally we were able to implement it. The golf action plan I mentioned before to address capital needs at Broken T was completed last year, and we're adding to it with some recent findings, as I mentioned, in the attics and the buildings. And then 42,000 people, that's the estimated number based off Placer AI data on that attended city special events in 2024. Our largest event was 4th of July. Second largest was the block party. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
and then the Englewood Public Library currently is working on their strategic plan. We will have that completed here in the next few months and begin the implementation process. We also just put an offer in for a new library director, and that offer has been accepted. So the new director have a fun role of implementing the strategic plan. And then the 41.5 general obligation Parks and Recreation bond also passed in November. That is going to help the infrastructure and of our parks and at both Pirates Cove and the Recreation Center. The 2 largest parks getting renovated will be Miller Fields and Bellevue Park. So we did learn early last year that Bellevue is in the FEMA floodway, and so the farm and train is impacted by that. And so we are looking to move the farm, keeping the farm because we know how important that is, but moving into a safer spot in Bellevue so it's out of the floodway, but still part of the park.
What is the timing of the funding for the 41.5 million?
So we're right in the beginning stages of issuing the bonds. We're on track to get the money sometime in March.
And how will the money be, how will the bonds be funded and what does that look like?
So once we issue the bonds, we'll get all the money right up front.
Okay.
We'll invest it, so we're earning some on it while we're spending the money. And then they're paid for out of the property tax mill levy.
Yes,
Over the
recall
next
that.
20 years.
Yes, recall that. Okay, thank you.
So challenges faced this last year, Brad mentioned irrigation systems going down. The bond is going to be addressing irrigation systems in our parks. Our facilities, Pirates Cove, has suffered from leaks for years. And so part of the renovation is part of the bond. That will be addressed as well. We always have challenges with staffing levels. We did pretty well this last year at Pirates Cove. We were fully staffed, able to be open every day, 85 days out of 85 opening days. But still with parks, aquatics, Mally, the library's really been challenged over the last couple of years with staffing levels, and we're still kind of in that boat right now, so we're working on that. And then in parks have seen an increase of graffiti and vandalism in the bathrooms, playgrounds, and shelters. And so that takes a lot of time from our staff to make those repairs. A couple weeks ago, the restroom over at Centennial Park was vandalized pretty heavily. We have welded those doors shut for now. We'll reopen them in the springtime. But we've had questions of why don't we heat our restrooms, and this is one of the main reasons why is people will make themselves home in there, start fires, utilize the electricity by ripping out the lights and other things to try to charge their phones. And so it's just something our park staff has had to deal with year after year, and we're always looking for solutions on how do you reduce that. And we have good partnership with both police and our park ranger and code enforcement and reporting items. Allied, our security company, also does rounds on occasion to Bellevue Park and Recreation Center and Mally as well, including the Civic Center. So just
And
more
I assume the community helps out too.
Yeah, it does help. We do have the Q-Alert Englefix program, and so if you ever see anything, if you see graffiti on a playground, please report it. We don't want kids exposed to that, and we want to clean it up as soon as possible. And then top 3 capital projects, we don't have a top 3. We have, like I mentioned, the 8 parks and 2 facilities with the $41.5 million in the bonds. We have to spend 85% of that in 3 years. We are heavy on contracts, getting everything prepped and ready to go to council for approval so we can hit the ground running. Cushing Park will be the first to break ground to make the renovations starting this spring. Emerson and Rotolo will follow, and then the rest of the parks will come online soon after that, along with the facilities. Pirates Cove and the rec center will be in design probably all this year, and then it's going to be a timing thing to get. We don't want Pirates Cove to be down during the summer in the off season, so it's going to be timing on Pirates Cove and the rec center to get those renovations complete. Also, strategic plan and action plans for the library, Pirates Cove, and Mally to address current and future needs of services, programs, and capital are all in play right now. Pirates Cove is wrapping up theirs. Library should be done in the spring here, and then Mally will be starting their active aging plan here in the next couple months. And then Brad mentioned too, the Mally weight room renovation. We need to make some changes, refresh that. We have some really cool drawings and plans, and we're meeting with the Mally Trust Fund on Monday to talk through the cost of that and how they would like to support it in addition to our conservation trust funds being implemented for those renovations. That's all.
So Director, I had a question for you. You referenced the impending upgrades or changes at both Miller Field and Bellevue Park,
Yes.
which are obviously going to be significant based on your previous presentations and then things I saw in the lead up to the ballot initiative. Is there going to be some sort of or is there a plan for communicating with those neighborhoods about expected impacts and even to gauge to get some additional community feedback, because obviously those are significant changes. For instance, the addition of, I think, a swimming pool at Miller Field.
Splash pad.
Splash pad, you know, and the increased traffic and all that will bring to a neighborhood that already deals with, for instance, the fire department, police
Oh,
being
yeah,
there. So
Yeah,
I live there by
Oh,
in
good.
that
No, it's great.
area.
It's a really good
Full
question.
disclosure,
So every park and the facilities that are part of the bonds, any of our projects, we do at least 2 community outreaches as far as public meetings. We'll do a survey in addition to that, and then everything is posted on Englewood Engaged. And so if you go to that page now, you already see a few of our bond projects posted and where they are in the status and the survey results and all the feedback we've received from the community. And so our designers have been amazing. We brought 4 or 5 on this last year to work on Emerson, Rotolo, and Cushing. They've been excellent in working with the community and really listening to feedback. We've done some conceptuals just to get people's minds going. By no means are those concrete in the way we're moving forward. Those have been scrapped and we're starting fresh. So as the design teams meet with the community members to get their input to see what they want, they are implementing that. We are in the under the umbrella of what council approved. So if the community wants a swimming pool, unfortunately that wasn't approved by council, so it would be a splash pad. Not to say down the road that could be something added in after the bond projects are complete, but we will stay within the means of what we initially proposed to council and what they approved.
So
quite relieved it's only a splash pad,
Okay, good.
personally.
So it'll take us 3 years to do the parks and rec with the GO bond. When does that work scheduled to start, and who's physically doing the work?
Okay, that's a good question. So each project will have a little bit different timeline because it's in different stages. Like I mentioned, Cushing's going under construction probably in March. Once we get in front of council, get contracts and everything approved, but we're ready to pull the trigger on that one, as well as all the other parks. So Rotolo's kind of in a hold pattern with the stormwater project they have going on there, and we're getting some additional information with flooding and different things we have to look at as part of the park renovation itself. So timeline's concerned, we're hoping to have the smaller parks completed probably by the end of 2025, early 26. Miller and Bellevue should be done by 28, I would say, by the 3rd year. And then Pirates Cove and the Rec Center, the hope would have those probably wrapping up by 28. And maybe rolling into 29 just based off of the seasons there. But it's really gonna come down, the construction teams that are hired. We have one construction team that's working at Bates Logan right now on those renovations, and they have been amazing. And so we'd love to see them bid on some of these projects. And the hope is, like we said, we brought on 5 designers already. They have done very well. They will stay with us through these projects. Both Pirates Cove and the Rec Center, an RFP is already out for the Rec Center, and the other RFP for the
For Pirates Cove should be out on Friday.
Yeah,
So
that's for design.
are we fixing the pool at Pirates Cove also?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, the east end of Pirates Cove, and we'll say it's gonna be blown out and it'll be fresh and brand new. That's where we've had all the leaks and challenges over the years since it was installed. Brad has mentioned it's unfortunately not helped the water like we want. So it's been watering the park, which is great. Nice trees over there. But yeah. It's repurposed.
Then amenities in there too, so probably a slide or something, so.
Okay.
So I mean, this is sort of ancillary, but Pirates Cove will see some lightly or maybe at least higher fees to come in and play.
No, that's something that I think we've topped out on. So we saw leveling this year. We did raise the fees. It surpassed 20, I think it was $21 for non-residents.
Right.
Okay.
18 for residents. I think we're at the cap right now. In fact, we've talked about, and that's what part of the strategic plan is doing, is looking at that. We may drop fees to try to get more people to come back. And that was some comments we heard is like, you might take your kids on a weekend, but you can't afford to
You're
go
not
every
going
weekend.
every weekend, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and our basis for saying that we're sort of maybe near the peak or at the peak is just a decline in foot traffic.
And there's been a decline in admission the last few years and stuff. That one, a good indicator of that was this year, to where it was an 85-day operating season and we were open 85 days. And so attendance numbers weren't that great. It was 70,000. is what actually came through the gates and stuff. So we had more attendance in other years. And so looking at Placer AI also is that was one of the things that we looked at is saying how much repeat business are we getting? And when we did that study on there, it came out to be as like 1.4 is how many times people came back. So that's telling us we need to do something to change it, whether it's keeping the fees the same, or the other big thing is we need to add something to the pool, to the park. So that's why it came in with the bond was if we change the pool a little bit, if we add another amenity in there, then we can hopefully bring some more guests coming into it each year.
Thank you. I haven't been there in 3 years, so I'll go this year.
We do adult nights.
Yeah, adult nights, very popular.
Well, the kids make me feel young again.
Oh. It is a different vibe.
Yeah. Right.
But you can come twice then. Adult
Okay,
night.
that sounds good. Yeah, and is there like if you come more than 7 times, is there some discount or not?
There is, that's part of it. We have a season pass.
Okay. So
And then we have a family pass, so if it's just 1 or 2 people, it's recommended just buy the season pass, and then it pays for itself after like 7 or 8 times.
Okay.
And then we also have a family pass. A family pass is really geared for a family of 4 people to come into it. You can add more than 4 people on it, but there's an additional charge. I think it's $40 a person on the pass, but it's relatively inexpensive. So if you're gonna come multiple times, there are discounted passes to use.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a fine tune around that as well, so we don't.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
And that's part of the whole strategic plan that we're going through right now is looking at fees and looking how marketing, how we can bring more people in but through marketing and everything else, looking at all the different venues.
Do you anticipate with current timelines and funding that you'll be able to address all the aging infrastructure, deferred maintenance issues?
Not all of it, the majority of it, when we're looking at the bond, the majority of all the infrastructure issues are going to be addressed with the bond. There's still some parks that aren't part of that, weren't part of the bond, so there's still some infrastructure things that we have to address. So we're looking to do that one as far as the facilities. Pirates Cove alone is 22 years old now, and so it is an aging facility. So sure, we're sprucing up as far as the pools, and there's 3 bodies of water there, adding slides and stuff, but then we also have got we got pumps, we got filters, like I mentioned. Aquatic equipment's good for 12 to 15 years. Well, now we're getting into the 22-year range. It's like, okay, how are we going to start doing that? So that's part of the CTF funds that we have that we're putting together, and we're prioritizing the different pieces of equipment that we're changing out. In fact, some of the hair and lint strainers that we have, so anytime someone gets in the pool and a lint gets from a suit or hair comes out, and I think, not my hair, it's other people's hair, but what happens, it goes in, it gets caught in a strainer, so it doesn't go in and damage the pump and clog the filters up. So we're already identified 3 of those that we'll be replacing this year, and that's coming from CTF funding, Conservation Trust Fund funding. So it's a fine balance, but it's doing that whole thing. You'll see, if you see the RFP that's coming out for Pirates Cove, we identified, and actually the rec center, that is an alternate part of it, that we put those filters and equipment in there, is if we have enough money, that, that's an option that we can go to. We'll have a pretty good price range of how much that will cost if we can squeeze that in.
We're going to try to stretch the bond dollars as far as we can. There's a lot of unknowns with tariffs and other things that are happening that right at this time, even interest rates aren't moving as much as I think anticipated, but they are lower than what we initially quoted. So yeah, there's so many moving parts to this, but it's exciting that for Englewood we can do some of these really amazing improvements. So the community can benefit for 20 plus years with the improvements we do over the next 3.
We'll spend all $41.5 million.
So thank you, voters. We appreciate it.
Well,
we'll pay it back.
Trust that you'll do a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Rita, Steve?
Well, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Brad.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, other business. Let's see. I did not prep anyone for any sales and use tax or property tax or any other kind of tax, or revenue, I should say, on this side, right? government side, we call it revenue. I will say though, Nevin, did you have anything you wanted to add to your presentation last month? Or do you feel like we kind of addressed everything that you had intended?
I think that there were just a couple of takeaways and just asking members to potentially try to consider a few things. I think we had talked about having sorry.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I just want to make sure that we didn't let that one go stale. I don't think we're going to do any other business tonight. We're going to end on time. But we still need to deliver something to City Council on that. And I wanted to keep it as fresh as we could. So anybody have any recommendations for following the EDDA presentation next month? Do you want to try to finish the sales use tax? Audit, we may have to because when's the police department coming there in March? I'm sorry, I know you have multiple things moving. I can look here. They are in March. Yes. So we will have to finish that up next month. Agreed?
Yeah.
So I think we need to reach a point where we can say, here are sort of the instruments that an audit should perform, right? And I think that's mostly on the police department side was where we kind of had some open items from last year. I think more or less, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, but we were okay with the city street maintenance.
I think
paving.
I think honestly, just the nature of the work was a lot more straightforward. I mean,
Agreed.
they reported the number of blocks or number of miles. And I think because a lot of the policing work involved staff and personnel, there was an added level of complexity that I think we wanted some additional detail on.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that was the main distinction that I saw anyway.
Do you want to glance at that presentation real quick and we'll call it here in 2 or 3 minutes?
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If I remember correctly, there were a few asks from members, namely just prior to the next time that we discuss this, trying to identify format changes and try to identify specific asks, but I thought that there was something else I was trying to.
And I will tell you, I have some notes and I didn't find an old email. So what I'll do, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Nevin.
It's okay.
I just wanted us to be aware. And so I think what we'll do in the next couple of weeks is let's just make an effort to circulate any other outstanding items that we see before the EDDA or after the EDDA presentation next month so that we can be prepared for the police department, which to me, we should be able to hand them something, call it following next month's meeting with just our questions and some of the areas that I think we had maybe some
Suggestions,
yeah. And so we'll try to make it as simple and straightforward as possible.
Did we finalize kind of the format of the tool? I know that was a subject of conversation as well. It was kind of a table, as I recall, and I can't remember if finance created it or if it was created by Public Works or police, because there was a lot of talk about could we get almost like some budget narrative information there, especially around personnel allocation and things like that. So I just was wondering, before people put a lot of work into using that prior tool, if we did have a recommended modified version.
So that was those types of changes. That was one of the asks for members, but the short answer is no. I have a draft with my one change that I've been harping on, but if there are other changes that people want, that would be really helpful.
Okay, so I'm just going to send an email out for the group, and I'll let Tyson add this. Do we have anything else that you all can remember?
So we have the draft, or not the draft, the final version from last year, and that is attached to the agenda. We can also attach,
That was in today's?
yes,
Oh, I'm
it should be
sorry.
under new business, discussion of dedicated sales and use tax. Got that in there as a PDF.
It's that one there. I've not seen it, so it's just me.
You may have to refresh, it was added after it was sent.
Okay, all right. So I'll look at that, and I think I'll just make it a plan with Nevin and whoever else wants to be involved, the group. But for your idea, and then we'll recirculate this information before next meeting, if that works.
And Tyson, I'll probably reach out to you and Jennifer with any notes that I have about asks for the board members, just if you're
Yeah, we'll put your presentation on there. Okay, members' choice. Jay?
Nothing here.
Okay, well, I think our meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Pete, I'll follow up with you later on this week with a phone call.
Wonderful.